next, can you both discuss the origins of your partnership? How did this all begin? The idea that, let me start out with Ali, because you walked into the door, right?
Yeah.
So what was it all about? How did it all begin?
Honestly, it was an iterative process. Amir mentioned earlier that we had troubles as an immigrant, really finding a job. So actually our first app that we created was more than like a year and a half ago, and it was really focused on, it's called like Just Easy Jobs. So it was really simple jobs for people who are in school, who are immigrants, that they can do. And then we actually dropped into the Azusa adult school because we saw ESL classes, but I think this is something we can talk about. And the counselor actually directed us to John. He's like, John is the consortium head. He always is willing to look at different types of technology. Why don't you go pitch it to him? We go into John's office. He talks about AB 104 and some of the objectives and some of the challenges that he has in terms of outcomes. So then we actually started to modify what our objective was in the sense that, like, hey, there's this whole group of adult education students who are close to getting jobs. Honestly, the reason you guys have those CTE programs is because they should be able to go into those programs, and within 3 months, 6 months, now they have a higher paying career, but they're still not finding jobs in some cases. And we noticed that there's a huge gap in the existing technologies that are out there, whether it's Monster, whether it's Indeed, and what our students need. Now, we'll talk about it a little bit, but our students are great at Instagram, Tinder, Bumble. They're not great at writing resumes, and they're not great at on LinkedIn. So clearly, a lot of those other technologies are actually more focused on professional students versus the students that we have come into our doors every day.
Thanks. Yeah, as Ali said, they were in my lobby, and I met them, and there's a lot of folks that come by, they send emails or a lot of ideas. The thing that stood out for me when they were talking was one that this is something that's personal to them because they're both English learners. So that got my attention. And they had data to back this up. That there's a hidden workforce out there that has their characteristics of those barriers of language. And when you go on Indeed and you see a job posting that says bakery quality control technician, right? And then overtime hours are required. And then the way it's described is language that's very off-putting for an immigrant. And the immigrant doesn't think that they're prepared to be a quality control engineer for a bakery. But I think they could probably figure out how to go in and bake a pie. And that's really what the job was about. And the job came with overtime. So they showed a lot of data to me about this hidden workforce and had some experiences at Burbank Adult School. And so I said, this is interesting. Then what's been great is we've been involved with them, as Ali said, iteratively, at each version. And the most recent has come up with utilizing AI. And we can get into that, but utilizing this app, this is the latest and greatest, but utilizing AI to create, I don't want to jump the gun, but to create ATS-compliant resumes. People might be applying and not getting any response to their application because their resume is not ATS-compliant. And so, following up on what Ali said about this generation, they get Tinder. Swiping right, swiping left. Neil Kelly said, oh, this app is great, it's Tinder for employment. I'm like, okay, that's a one floor pitch, but the utilization of AI to create the student profile, to create the ATS resume, compliant resume, to start the process once there's a match of utilizing AI so that the employer is getting some information from the candidate and the candidates get some information from the employer. Utilizing those AI tools in an ethical, non-biased, productive way is how AI is involved in bridging the learning, the certifications, the licenses into those jobs.
Hi, I have a question. How can this app support the traditional ELL support teacher in the IET model without feeling that this is taking over their position as far as giving the support that they were hired to do with the CTE teacher?
That's a great question. So, you know, and so you're talking about the work readiness or the ELL teacher.
Yes.
Right, so I think there's a variety of ways, right? First of all, so I was in Marchie's session earlier. One of the things that they do and what they did in devising their IET program was starting with employers, and that's what we're asked to do. So I think an ELL teacher that's supporting CTE is going to be there to support if you were using this app and your employers were there with their job postings, that ELL teacher could help them navigate, say, hey, this is the language that's here. Are you understanding the language of the job description? Are you understanding what this job is asking you for? And they've started this with CTE. My own personal vision for it, and it has nothing to do with me, but is that it could go to everyone's ESL students. I mean, I have students that roll into campus in a Porsche Cayenne. I don't think they're looking for a job. But there are a lot of students that are. We have job fairs and our ESL students do come. But I think an ELL teacher in that IET program can help a student navigate it. And there's other things that come out of it, you know, in terms of helping them look at their ATS-compliant resume, helping them understand what the job description is. And then there's other things for individuals. Now, you'd hope by the time they're in a program that they already have their career profiler sorted out, but we're in beta with a career profiler. It's discouraging because a lot of people who are in CNA programs are saying that they should be in customer service, which is, you know, so my counselor's like, stop with the career profile. They're already in the program. But I do think that there's a lot of ways that ELL teachers could support students in terms of vocabulary acquisition, in terms of language, in terms of you know, help with digital literacy. I think there's a lot of ways that an ELL teacher can support a student in this app.
Thank you. Yeah, question?
I really like the back end where you go to the employers first and you start with our employers. But what if I don't have a lot of employers? You know, because our teachers don't have time to go into the industry and actually curate employers for their students.
Great question.
That is a really good question, and it's come up a few times, especially for some of the schools that are a little bit more rural and they don't have a lot of employers nearby. What we will do is we have the ability to pull jobs from the internet, any type of job. So if you have a specific type of CTE program, wherever you are, we can pull jobs within a 25 radius, pull them into the app, still show them to students. And now, when we approach that employer, we will go alongside you and we will say, hey, as long as, like, let's say we have 10 students who swipe on a job. Now when we go to an employer, we say, hey, employer X, Amazon, whoever you are, right? We have 10 students who just swipe on your job. Now they're listening because they have 10 potential candidates. So it helps us. And then the other thing is, if they still don't want to come onto that platform for whatever reason, right? We still send the students the link to actually apply, direct to them on the job. So instead of going through Indeed, we will actually send them the direct link for them to apply on that company's website. So what we try to do is, there's power in numbers. When we present a cohort of phlebotomists who are graduating, we have 25 of them graduating. When we talk to anyone who's hiring, and we can say that, hey, there's 25 people who are graduating next month, why don't we do a Zoom session? You know, why don't we tell them about your company? Why don't we feature your company? Their ears they perk up and they're willing to do it. So it helps both us and you to get new relationships with